Hey everyone, it's been 24 years! Can you believe it? Gladiator 2 is finally here and it's bringing the thunder with the legendary Denzel Washington. Now, we're not here to nitpick about minor movie magic glitches like, the arrow mysteriously moving from Arashat's stomach to her chest while she's floating, but we are diving deep into some historical inaccuracies that might have you scratching your head. Like, what is the story of purple color? What is the critical discussion about sharks? The reenactment of naval battle announcement in the movie? What's wrong with the pumpkins in the backgrounds of opening scene? What is reality of brothers Geta and Caracalla and who murdered Geta in real? Who was General Acacius and more? And hold on tight, because we're about to present two most beautiful facts like connection between Gladiator 2 and 2005 movie Kingdom of Heaven. And did you know Ridley Scott had a super sweet gesture for Russell Crowe? You won't want to miss it, so buckle up, history buffs. Let's get into it. Here's a little detail that might make history buffs cringe. In the opening scene, when Lucius is sitting in his field in Numidia, you can spot pumpkins growing. But here's the kicker. Pumpkins are native to the Americas and didn't exist in ancient Rome at the time of the story. It's a fun little slip, but it totally pulls you out of the timeline. Did you catch the Praetorian Guard and the Emperor's Legion decked out in purple with matching banners in Gladiator 2? Looks cool, right? Well, here's the twist. Purple dye was so insanely expensive in ancient Rome that even Emperor Nero reserved it exclusively for himself. He was so serious about it that anyone else caught wearing purple could face the death penalty. Talk about taking royal fashion to the extreme. Here's a jaw-dropping thought. Sharks in the Colosseum? It sounds intense, but here's the problem. Sharks are incredibly hard to transport and even harder to keep in captivity, even today. So there's absolutely no way the ancient Romans could have pulled this off. It's one of those things that just doesn't add up. Okay, let's talk about this naval battle. The movie describes it as a reenactment of the Battle of Salamis between the Persians and the Trojans. Wait a minute. The Battle of Salamis was a clash between the Persians and the Greeks, specifically Sparta and Athens. This is a biggie. It's like saying the Super Bowl is a rematch between the Yankees and the Dodgers. It just doesn't make sense. It's a glaring historical error that really takes you out of the moment. The story of brothers Geta and Caracalla is nothing short of dramatic, and Gladiator 2 doesn't quite capture the full intensity. These two were bitter enemies to the point where they couldn't even speak to each other and had to sleep in separate quarters. And here's the kicker. By the time the events of the film take place, Geta had already been brutally murdered. Talk about family betrayal at its darkest. The end of Caracalla's life is just as brutal as his reign. He was assassinated by a soldier named Julius Martialis during a military campaign against the Parthians. Martialis, who was part of Caracalla's own guard, struck while the emperor was in a vulnerable position, relieving himself at a stopover in the imperial caravan. The shocking murder was reportedly orchestrated by the Praetorian prefect Macrinus, who feared for his own life after clashes with Caracalla. A true plot of betrayal and political tension. In reality, ancient Roman inscriptions would have been in Latin. Using English in a film set in ancient Rome is a common cinematic convention for the sake of audience accessibility. It's a similar approach to how period dramas often have characters speaking in modern English, even though they would have spoken in the language of the time. While not historically accurate, it's a practical decision that enhances viewer understanding and engagement. Here's another interesting historical mix-up in Gladiator 2. We see trebuchets being used for city defense, but here's the problem. The trebuchet was actually invented in China around the 4th century BCE, and it didn't make its way to the Middle East until the 6th and 7th centuries CE. The counterweight-driven trebuchets featured in the film didn't appear until Europe in the 1100s. So not only is the timeline off, but the technology just doesn't match up with the time period in the movie. Here's a big historical oops. In Gladiator 2, the film makes it seem like the Romans were invading Numidia, but by the time Geta and Caracalla were in power, North Africa had already been part of the Roman Empire for over 150 years. The actual siege of Numidia happened way earlier during the Jugurthine War between 112 BCE and 106 BCE, almost 3 centuries before the events of the film. So yeah, a little out of sync with history, don't you think? Here's a geographical slip in Gladiator 2 that might leave you scratching your head. In the movie, a character comes from the port of Ostia and crosses a river to enter Rome. But here's the thing. Ostia is actually located near the mouth of the Tiber River, and there would be no need to cross it to reach Rome. You'd be right there on the banks, ready to walk straight into the city. Another little detail that got lost in translation. Here's a fun behind-the-scenes fact from Gladiator 2. Number 1. Sir Ridley Scott once revealed in an interview with Simon Mayo that he sold the entire Kingdom of Heaven 2005 set to the Moroccan government for just $10. Why? It was actually cheaper than dismantling the whole thing. But here's the twist. When it came time for Gladiator 2, he had to hire that very same set back from the Moroccan government to use in the film. Talk about a full circle moment. Number 2. Here's an interesting behind-the-scenes tidbit. Ridley Scott didn't actually have to pay Russell Crowe anything, nor did he need Crowe's permission to reuse footage from Gladiator 2000 in the sequel, thanks to the terms of Crowe's original contract. But here's the kicker. Scott still gave Crowe a $50,000 payment as a gesture of goodwill. Talk about keeping things classy. Alright folks, let's talk about the movie. Gladiator 2 is a fantastic ride from start to finish. Every actor truly brought their A-class performance and did justice to their roles. Art of the direction of Sir Ridley Scott will keep you engaged from start to the end. You definitely don't want to miss this one. That's it for now, my friends. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and of course, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Catch you in the next one.